Not whisper, not hum in the background, but truly speak to you, in full sentences, with a personality, a presence. What would it say? Would it scold you for every mistake? Would it second-guess every move you make? Or would it try to protect you in the only way it knows how? Imagine waking up and hearing a voice, not an intruder, not a hallucination, but something eerily familiar. You realize it's always been there. You just never stopped long enough to listen. This is not a horror story. It's not science fiction. This is your mind. This is anxiety, personified. The voice inside. Understanding anxiety's origins. Anxiety isn't a villain. It isn't some foreign entity that broke into your brain one night. It was built into you, a deeply wired survival mechanism, inherited from ancestors who couldn't afford to take chances. To them, the rustling in the bushes wasn't just wind. It was a predator. The cost of being wrong? Death. The cost of being too cautious? Maybe hunger. So their minds evolved to overreact, to predict the worst, and those minds survived. Fast forward to today. The predators are gone, the jungle replaced by concrete. But the voice remains. If anxiety could talk, it might begin like this. I was made to keep you alive. But in our modern world, physical threats are minimal, while social and emotional threats multiply. This once useful voice becomes confused. It panics without danger. It screams when you send an email. It flinches when someone doesn't reply. It starts sounding less like protection and more like self-sabotage. Take Sarah, for example, a bright young woman excelling in her career. Yet every morning, anxiety fills her with dread. Emails become mountains. Meetings become battlegrounds. Anxiety whispers, "You're an imposter." Soon, everyone will know. Despite her successes, the voice remains relentless. When protection turns to control. Imagine anxiety as an overbearing friend. It means well. It genuinely wants to help, but it doesn't know when to stop. You prepare for a presentation. Anxiety suggests, let's practice again. Helpful at first, then again, and again. Soon you're drowning in rehearsals, second-guessing every sentence. Your voice shakes, not because you're unprepared, but because you're exhausted. Consider James, who met someone special. Initially thrilled, he soon heard anxiety whisper, "What if she leaves? What if you're not enough?" These intrusive thoughts undermined trust, planting doubts where joy once blossomed. Anxiety isn't cruel, but it doesn't understand balance. It speaks in absolutes. Avoid, escape, hide. The stories anxiety tells. Anxiety is a storyteller, spinning elaborate tales in your mind. It predicts worst-case scenarios, imagines embarrassing moments, and convinces you these outcomes are inevitable. It's not that anxiety wants you miserable. It simply believes preparation equals safety. By anticipating the worst, it feels ready. Emily experiences this daily. Invited to social gatherings, she imagines endless embarrassing scenarios. Awkward silences, missteps, judgmental looks. These imagined failures trap her, leading her to cancel plans, isolate herself, and ultimately feel lonelier. From a psychological perspective, these anxious thoughts are rooted deeply in our brain's amygdala, a tiny almond-shaped region responsible for detecting threats and triggering fear responses. The amygdala can become hyperactive, creating exaggerated responses to non-threatening situations, which is precisely what happens when anxiety takes hold. Behind anxiety's cautionary tales lies a hidden truth. Anxiety itself is frightened. It fears uncertainty. It fears loss of control, and in trying to avoid these fears, it projects them onto you. What anxiety really wants. If you listened closely, beneath anxiety's panicked voice, you'd find a quiet plea. Please, don't get hurt. That's all anxiety ever wanted, a desperate attempt to shield you from pain. But like an overly cautious parent, it doesn't always distinguish real threats from imagined ones. It sees shadows as predators, silence as abandonment, mistakes as catastrophes. The voice isn't malicious, it's misinformed. It lacks context. It struggles with nuance. It doesn't grasp that pain can teach valuable lessons, discomfort can inspire growth, and silence isn't always rejection. Psychologists explain this as cognitive distortions, thinking patterns that reinforce negative emotions and beliefs, often leading individuals to perceive neutral situations negatively. Recognizing these distortions is key to reducing anxiety's grip. Coexisting with the voice. Knowing this, what do? You don't fight anxiety. You don't silence it. You acknowledge it. I hear you, you say gently. I know you're scared, but I'm safe now. We're safe. Acknowledgement is where healing begins. You start building a relationship with this voice. You recognize when anxiety appears, noting its patterns and triggers during transitions, uncertainties, and change. You learn to respond. Consider Tom, who learned to acknowledge his anxiety during job interviews. Instead of suppressing it, he gently reminded himself, I'm prepared. Anxiety, I know you're here, but we'll handle this together. This approach transformed his anxiety from obstacle to companion. Not with anger or shame, but with compassion. Thank you for protecting me, you say softly, but I've got this. Transforming anxiety's role. The more you engage with anxiety, not as an adversary, but as a concerned companion, the more power you regain. It no longer dictates your decisions. Instead, anxiety becomes just one voice in your inner dialogue. You realize you can experience anxiety and still move forward. Still speak, still love, still chase dreams. You learn to bring anxiety along, saying, I know you're scared, but we're going anyway. Over time, the anxious voice softens. It stops screaming. Occasionally, it even listens, living with anxiety, not under its control. Anxiety may never fully disappear. That's okay. Living free from anxiety isn't about eliminating it entirely. It's about understanding it deeply enough so it doesn't overpower your choices. You begin noticing its warnings without immediately believing them. You separate fear from facts, anxiety from reality. You build resilience, realizing you're stronger than anxiety allows you to believe. In doing so, you reclaim your life, not by banishing anxiety, but by integrating it, by making peace. What if your anxiety could talk? Perhaps it always has. Maybe now you're finally ready to listen and respond, not to silence or dominate, but to understand. In that understanding, you find freedom. Because anxiety isn't weakness, it's human. Maybe it never needed to be feared, only heard.